The first weekend of spring training baseball has come and gone. Baseball is back in 2024.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Well, I think we start with the biggest news out of the first weekend of spring training. The Blue Jays have officially found and hired their new bat boy.
Yeah, he looked really good, actually. I swear I've seen him somewhere before. Couldn't really put my tongue on the name, but he looked like he was getting done pretty well up there. 4-10 is the number, so that's a little bit interesting, first in Jays history. But it looked like he was pretty successful with his new job.
Yep, Tim Mesa, the newest Blue Jays bat boy, probably one of the funniest things to happen in a spring training game. Like, imagine losing a fantasy football league and then you having to go on your MLB team and go be the bat boy. Hilarious. He had some fun with it though. It was just a sort of a good lighthearted way to start spring training.
Oh, that's a great punishment too. They only made him do it for 3 innings. I think he kind of got away lucky there because if I was on the Blue Jays roster, I would have made him do the full game. I don't care if it's the AA, AAA guys in. You're sitting there the whole game and you are soaking that punishment. But good for him for being a good sport and at least doing it for 3 innings.
Yeah, no, for sure. It was good. Yeah, everybody on the broadcast was having fun with it too. Sort of, they chatted with him a few times. It was funny. It was good to watch. I mean, not just, and you know what? He probably got lots of action because man, were there a lot of balls hit that game.
Yeah, we were kind of a lackluster season for runs last year, but boy, did we ever get runs in the first game back. A 14-13 loss for the Toronto Blue Jays against the Philadelphia Phillies. I don't really read into scores this early. It's spring training. But obviously, when we see the Blue Jays box scores, there's a reason to get excited for some players. And we're Blue Jays fans, and we only have one game under our belts. So it's going to be fun to overreact at some of the stat lines we've got from game one.
Yeah, well, I think to be honest with you, the biggest takeaway from this game for me was Daulton Varsho. We said it in our bounce back players episode. And you know, he was one of the guys that we think, okay, he's a guy that could pop off and come back this year, or you know, make an impact. And in that first spring training game, he was hitting the ball in gaps. He was hitting the ball hard. He looked amazing. What do you think?
Well, yeah, with that first at bat, bases loaded, a thing that the Jays didn't do well last season was hitting with runners in scoring position and hitting in the clutch. Then Daulton Varsho barrels up a baseball, smashes it at the first baseman. A little bit too hot for him to handle. Gets into right field, and then they get those 2 runs. A 3-for-3 day from Daulton Varsho looked great. Another guy that looked great was actually IKF. That first at bat, he struggled a little bit. Still worked the count to 3-2. Ended up with a strikeout, but then he smashed 2 balls in the center for his next 2 at bats. 2-for-3 for day for IKF. The only bad thing other than that strikeout was that steal attempt. That was kind of embarrassing on his behalf. But I mean, it's spring training. You might as well send him, see what he's got. And that's, in my opinion, that's not a great sign for him in the base running. They probably won't see him steal too many bags this season.
No, I can't even tell you how many texts I got yesterday of people being like, well, for one guy sent me a text and said, "Who was that?" And I was like, "Oh, that was IKF." Yes, that was horrible. Like that was one of the worst attempts I've seen. Like,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
he just got a bad jump. I mean, it is what it is. He's kind of one of those guys that maybe you catch the defense sleeping, you can get a good first lead off there, and then hopefully get some steps behind the play. He's not going to be a guy that's like getting a small lead and just taking off. He's got to get a big jump to make it to second base. But
yeah,
one interesting thing I saw too is they sent Bo Bichette early on in the game as well, and they were saying he had, I think it was 15 stolen bases the year before and only 5 last season. So they want to get him kind of running a little bit more and make some more opportunities for the Blue Jays bats that struggled to get guys in scoring position last season and struggled to drive runners in.
yeah. And I mean, honestly, like you said earlier, I don't put too much stock into anything that really happens in spring training, but it is interesting to keep, you know, an eye on guys who are maybe switching things up or getting back to their old ways. And I think to see Bo Bichette, you know, take off and give it a try at least, and it was a good attempt. He got there, it was fantastic, and if he can take a couple bags this year, I think that's really going to help us out.
Well, there's a couple other people that I just wanted to give shout outs to as well on this Blue Jays team. Danny Jansen looked great at the plate, going 1 for 2 with a walk. Justin Turner looked amazing as well. Walk and a hit there. We went, I think it was 1 for 1 for, yeah, 1 and 1 for Justin Turner, had 2 walks. And then I think Nathan Lucas, another guy that we didn't really give a lot of flowers at the start of the spring training. He comes in for 2 RBIs, sacrifice attempts. So you're going to take that too. It's nice to see the runners being driven in. But we'll get to the unfortunate part, and that is pretty much for everyone on this Blue Jays pitching staff. Not a great day from some guys, and one guy that it sucked to see struggle out there was Nate Pearson.
Yeah, that's the toughest one for me, right? So Nate Pearson pitches 2/3 of an inning, gives up 4 hits, 4 runs. He got 1 strikeout, 1 walk, and 2 home runs given up, which for a guy that's a major league pitcher, pitching with a guy, some of these guys that won't touch the majors this year. Yeah, it's a little bit concerning to see for sure. Again, I don't know how much stock he put into his first outing, but it makes you think though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. When you're looking at that Phillies lineup, the only MLB caliber starter they really had in that lineup was the former Blue Jay Whit Merrifield. That was a kind of a weird feeling that I had seeing him in another uniform for the Phillies. It was nice to see him and Bo Bichette kind of shooting it around though at second base. They were laughing, having a good time. But yeah, with Nate Pearson, he was leaving a lot of pitches over the middle. Obviously, gave up that 1 home run that was just launched, a ball high and just fully over the plate. With Nate Pearson, he was a guy that had a little bit of success last year for a few weeks and then just kind of completely lost it. This Pearson experience with the Toronto Blue Jays has not worked out at all, to say the least. It is early in spring training, and it was nice to see him kind of throwing that splitter. He did throw it a couple times, but the location on it right now is all over the place. But again, it is early. It was only the first game for spring training. Can't really take away too much from it. But hopefully he can continue to work and develop that splitter, and hopefully he can be successful for the Blue Jays and at least be like maybe a bullpen rotational piece. We'll see with such a great bullpen, but hopefully he can work on it throughout the spring training.
Yeah, I think that splitter could be a huge pitch for him if he can get it down. It's just the problem is if you're throwing it and you're mislocating that pitch, that's one that if it hangs over the plate, that's one that guys are going to easily pick up and take yards. So
Yeah, with Nate Pearson, one good thing for him is that he does have that high velo, so he should be able to get away with more pitches than the average pitcher. But yeah, if you're going to leave that fastball middle to MLB, even AAA, AA caliber hitters, they're going to take advantage of it and they're going to make you pay for it. Well, we'll get to one more negative here is Yasser Zuleta. I know this isn't really a guy that we're going to be expecting a lot of from the season, but he gave up 7 runs in 2/3 of innings of work. Not great to see. Again, this is early on, but he looked really bad out there. I'm just going to kind of leave it at that for him. Let's get to some positives for the pitching. Chad Dallas in the 1 inning of work he had in the first inning looked amazing. I know he had 2 strikeouts. That slider on the outside part had them looking silly, swinging a garden hose at the plate. Braden, how do you feel about Chad Dallas's performance this first game of the spring training?
yeah, you know what? He wasn't when he came in. He wasn't a guy that I was necessarily pumped to watch or anything like that. But seeing guys whiff on that slider and how effective he used that pitch, I don't know. Maybe again, it's pretty early to tell, how good he's going to be or if he could make a push for the majors this year. But it is interesting to see him with some success, and maybe throughout spring training that gives him, a little bit of confidence, and maybe we see more success if he can keep that slider going as it was.
Yeah, when they announced that Chad Dallas was starting, obviously I was very disappointed because we were hyped up to see Ricky T go the first game of the spring training. But there was some left hamstring discomfort, and there's no reason to throw Ricky T into the fire if he has any even like symptoms or struggles of injuries. You do not want this guy to be hurt throughout the season. Struggled with injuries a little bit last season, but yeah, Chad Dallas looked amazing. Again, we have to keep saying this. It is early, but he looked great. I mean, like we made Whit Merrifield ground out on soft contact, and then the next 2 guys, I think, were AAA caliber players, but still, I mean, it's tough to strike out guys that are MLB caliber and professional baseball players. So anytime you can have a clean inning like that is exciting to see for Blue Jays pitchers, and it's nice to see that we do have some bullpen depth in the minor leagues.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they use him for in the rest of spring training and how many more, goes he gets. But I think now that we've seen what he can do, now I'm a little bit more excited when his name pops up on my TV screen for me be able to see what he's got and what he could bring to this lineup if there was ever a case of injuries or something like that.
Well, and that's the best part about spring training is that Chad Dallas is a guy that you wouldn't necessarily hear about a lot in the season. So it's nice to see these prospects and some of these guys that you're not going to see regularly in the MLB and see kind of what they have, right? Like just Chad Dallas was one guy that looked good. We saw some Addison Barger at bats, didn't go too well for him. Reynolds Martinez looked pretty good. He had a walk. His eye was something that impressed me his last game there. Didn't get too much work in the field, but it will keep coming throughout spring training. I know he's in the lineup again for Sunday. So with Aurelvis Martinez, he's a guy that we're going to want to see get a lot of at-bats. Again, we haven't seen Vladdy yet. Another guy that I'm looking forward to see. There's a few guys that were in the lineup for Sunday. We are recording this Sunday morning, so we're going to have to recap the Sunday game on Tuesday's episode. But I'm excited to see some of these spring training guys, just the top prospects in the system go off. Chad Dallas, like we said, was one. Earls Martinez, Addison Barger, just Brandon Berea. I think he's pitching soon. So there's a bunch of guys that I'm excited to see throughout spring training that you normally wouldn't see throughout the season.
Yeah, and just to bring up that game, since it is like it's like 1 o'clock here, so the game is on right now. I've actually got it right on my TV screen, just over on my one side here. And Alejandro Kirk, first home run of spring training. If we can see some production out of Alejandro Kirk this year, getting that pop again, I think our catcher tandem could be just a lethal weapon this year.
Hey, Alejandro Kirk with a full spring training might be a different breed. It's nice to see him finally get back into the swing of things. Last year, he's having his child. Congratulations to him. But just a tough spring training to go through when you're not there for 90% of the spring training. So it's nice that he can have the full spring training to develop his skills and just get settled into the MLB season.
Yeah, and one other thing I want to bring out so far, Davis Schneider 0 for 2 with I believe 1 strikeout. Not the best that we've seen from him so far, but again, a lot of these guys, it's early working out kinks. It is like the first 2 games, first weekend here of spring training. So, we're going to get a little bit more into, going over some stuff from yesterday, a little bit of stuff today, and then we have some spring training storylines that have been going on that have finally come to a close. So we'll talk about that next. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. You can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. As we get further into spring training, I will be putting some money down. I have lost quite a bit in the last couple days. I, again, went back to making my own parlays last night, and it didn't work out well. So I will be sticking with FanDuel's pre-made same-game parlays because those are the ones I tend to win on. So shoot your shot with FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every moment more. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. So as we get sort of more, we keep talking about these games, but it is interesting. It's cool to see which guys are going to succeed, which guys aren't going to do as good. Carter, I'm going to throw it to you because we had some fielding troubles in this first game, right? There was a couple errors, couple guys throwing balls away or not making the right play. And one guy that sort of stuck out to me because he had a bad inning was Eloy Jimenez.
Yeah, I think just on that ground ball to short, it was his first one of the spring. So again, we can't read into it too much, but it just looked like he rushed the entire process of the throw. Again, he did have not a lot of time. The guy who was running, I don't know his name because it's spring training. He was running to first base. He was a little bit quicker, but yeah, it just looked like Jimenez to rush the throw. Obviously throws it kind of behind the first baseman. Guy gets on. It's a simple mistake that you don't want to be making in spring training. Eloy Jimenez is a guy that's known for his fielding. He's supposed to be one of the better fielders in this system. So yeah, seeing him struggle this early on isn't a great sign. But again, it's the first day of spring training. This is the time to make mistakes. If you're going to make them, you don't want to be making these sort of simple errors in the middle of the season.
Yeah, and Leo Jimenez is one of those guys that when, I saw him come up and I saw, okay, he's getting some playing time. He was one of the guys that I was more excited to see. He didn't overly stand out for me. I mean, he went, I think 1 for 3. So it wasn't a horrible day at the plate for him. he also scored as a run, which I mean I think almost everybody scored with the amount of runs that were put up on the board yesterday. Uh, but yeah, again, don't read too much into it. But it seemed like he thought he had more time, and maybe that's a minor league thing where some guys aren't coming to the box as quick. Maybe it's the throat, whatever, right? But yeah, he sort of did a double clutch a couple times, and then he's like, I think he realized like, oh my goodness, he's right there, and then just tried to hum it over there. And yeah, it didn't, obviously wouldn't go his way when you're trying to rush a throw at any time, right? So yeah, I wouldn't read too much into it, but I thought like an interesting piece at least to bring up.
Yeah, well, before last season, that is something we kind of got accustomed to with Bo Bichette in 2021 and 2022. Bo Bichette had a way better fielding season last season. And then we saw it in the first inning there with Bo Bichette, just gets a routine ground ball, fires it right on the money to first base. And this
Yeah.
is a guy that I don't think gets recognized for how good he was defensively last season. I know the first month he did struggle, which skewed his stats a little bit, but his fielding percentage was upwards of 994 in the second half of the season. This is a guy that really puts in the work in spring training and just on his this every day on the offseason routine and between his MLB starts. He's always the first guy out there, the last guy off, fielding ground balls. And that's something he really wanted to work on over the season. So it's nice to see that Bo Bichette can be reliable both offensively and defensively.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, I know we were both guys that when he was struggling 2 seasons ago, we were pretty hard on him. We gave him a lot of grief. And then last year, I think we didn't praise him enough for how much he has overcome in the sense of, being able to make those plays now. And when he needs to get off throws, you can tell he's just way more confident hucking it over there. So I'm pretty pumped. I think if he stays solid, which I fully believe he will be, he looked fantastic yesterday. Bo Bichette is almost the quiet backbone. Everybody says Vlad's the superstar or whatever, but then you look at Bo Bichette and man, he puts this team on his back some days.
Well, you just looked at it in his first at bat of spring training. He does what he does best and just shoots the ball right back up the middle like it is the middle of May in the MLB season. So it's nice to see having a guy that's as good as Bo Bichette, like a guy that Jimenez can learn from, like Raul Martinez. All these middle infielders can learn from a guy like Bo Bichette, who's been doing it and doing it well for a long time now, especially on the offensive side. But one thing I wanted to get into is one of the big signings that just happened. He was linked to the Blue Jays a little bit this season, kind of fell through when we started signing some of these minor league guys. But Cody Bellinger is going back to the Chicago Cubs. It is a 3-year, $80 million deal. He will receive opt-outs after the second year or the first and second year. So a pretty big deal for a guy like Cody Bellinger, obviously getting over $26 million a year. Braden, how you feeling about this Cody Bellinger signing?
To be honest with you, I think it's in the it makes me think that there wasn't a whole lot of deals for that long-term contract that he was looking for. And he sort of was like, well, if I don't sign this, I'm probably not playing this, for the start of this season, which is not something he probably wanted to do. He probably wanted to get in some spring training time, get in some work. The weird thing that this makes me think of is now what happens with Matt Chapman. Is there a sense in your mind now that maybe he comes back to the Jays for a 1 to 2 year deal? Is that a possibility in your head after seeing what happened with Cody Bellinger?
I I can see it happening, but I don't think there's a high chance. I think this infield is so crowded already and just how much you're gonna have to pay Matt Chapman. I don't think he's going to settle for a 1 year deal. I think it would be sort of similar to Cody Bellinger, maybe a 2 to 4 year deal, somewhere in there. But yeah, like we need Matt Chapman? Yes, it would be nice because he's such a good defender. But then why are you paying IKF? Is Davis Schneider going to play at all? Where's Cavan Biggio going to play? Is Justin Turner just going to DH? There's so many guys that can fill this third baseman role. And Matt Chapman's at bats, and honestly, other than April, made me just sick to my stomach a lot of the times. Him missing middle fastballs. I know a lot of people in the comments do love Matt Chapman as he is such a good defender, but I'm over this Matt Chapman saga. He might come back. I'm going to put it at like 10% chance. I don't think Ross Atkins wants to deal anywhere near Scott Boras and his clients anymore.
Yeah, and you know what? It's obviously a Boris problem, as a lot of his guys. I think he had 5 players still waiting before the Cody Bellinger signing.
Well, Snell's still there, Chapman's still there, and I think
Yeah,
it's a smart move by Cody Bellinger to get his spring training in. We see it always. It's a very common if you don't get those prior at bats to the MLB season. It's tough to get in a routine. You have to go through those little drills. All the players say it's like, yeah, you just kind of have to go through the motions, but that's what makes you ready for the season. You got to do the little tidbits and mechanics, get everything settled for the start of the season, because you saw it with Brandon Belt. You saw it with Alejandro Kirk. Did not have good starts to the season, and that might impact guys like Matt Chapman, Blake Snell, who aren't signed yet this offseason.
Yeah, so I thought it was very interesting. This signing maybe changes the way for some of these players still in free agency, and maybe they have to look at, okay, maybe I do have to accept a 1 year, 2 year deal with the team, and I 100% believe that that's what's going to happen with Matt Chapman. Is he's going to sign a 1 to 2 year deal with probably an option for the second year, um, and that's where he's going to go because otherwise, yeah, you're not playing this year. It's not looking good. Guys should probably have been signed by now, and I sort of agree with you. I think that this is almost to the point where this is off the table and Chapman's not coming back. But I will never put it completely out of the ballpark because, yeah, now seeing Cody Bellinger go back makes you sort of wonder, right? Is there talks going on? And obviously, Boris is trying to push this and trying to get his guys playing because why wouldn't you? You don't want them to miss a season. So yeah, time will tell, but it is very interesting.
I have a hypothetical for you here. If Matt Chapman decides to sign a prove it deal with the New York Yankees, how would you feel about that? Would you be like, go for it? We saw his at bats last season. We don't want this guy even near our clubhouse. Or would you be like, oh, dang, there is the platinum Glover option at third base. They obviously get a lot better defensively. How would you feel if Matt Chapman signed with the Yankees?
Pretty pissed. Pretty pissed. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see former Blue Jays go and play for the Yankees. It made me very mad when Donaldson went and played for the Yankees. Um, but they're not, these players aren't like us, right? They haven't been lifelong Jays fans that have known rivalries and stuff like so it's I would get it from his perspective where he needs a deal. But as a Blue Jays fan, I think every Blue Jays fan would be on the same page of I don't want to see any of these players play against us next year.
Yeah, that's fair. I just feel like with Matt Chapman there, then you have a guy like Giancarlo Stanton. He does look great. He has lost a lot of weight as well. But you have two hit batters that strike out a ton and could be kind of black holes in the middle of the lineup, especially when they're not on. So it could be interesting to see if they were to do that. And I think for Matt Chapman, you're going to sort of, even though it is close to it is spring training already, and we're getting close to the regular season. I still think that you would have to overpay for Matt Chapman to sign, and the Yankees have a lot of money, as we know. So I do see that being a possibility of him signing with the Yankees.
I could too. And honestly, I don't know about the black hole thing as much because I think that's Yankee baseball. Since I can remember, they're a home run team, heavy hitting. They don't hit for average, but they're going to hit, 5 bombs a game on you, it feels like, right? So that's sort of their MO. Matt Chapman sort of fits like a glove in that squad where it's all or nothing a little bit with them. Whereas this Blue Jays team wants to hit for average, wants to generate runs and multiple score innings. And yeah, maybe you know what, maybe he does fit that mold. And obviously the Yankees are never scared to dish out more money. So it's a good possibility.
Well, and successful or not, when you have Aaron Judge on a team, he is a guy that can carry your team to the playoffs. You saw it in 2022. Just before we cut to our break here, I did want to bring up our 24/7 Locked On streaming channel. Whether it's college sports, NBA, MLB is obviously getting back in fruition here, NHL. We have everything you need at our Locked On 24/7 streaming channel. Whether you want to tune in at 2 a.m., 2 p.m., whenever you want to decide, whenever you desire to digest your sports content, just head over to our Locked On 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube and subscribe. Take care of all your vehicular maintenance needs with our partner, eBay Motors. eBay Motors has got everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your vehicle, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. I know Braden, I've brought up the story before. He had that Mini Cooper rusting. It was looking terrible. His bumper was almost falling off. But Braden loved that car. He actually he was sitting in his car for probably about 4 or 5 hours a day for the last week he had it, just trying to soak in all the memories he had. Tough to see that one go, but the parents were like, Braden, you got to move on. And it was tough to let go. But with eBay Motors, he kept that vehicle alive for another couple of years. So he did get to cherish those memories. So keep your ride or die alive with eBay Motors and go to ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusion supply, eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available for U.S. customers.
Okay, I have a big piece of information. Some of you may already know, since this is coming up Monday. The pitcher against the Pirates will be Yusei Kikuchi. Yusei Kikuchi. Let's go. How
Yep.
pumped are you to see him tonight
I'm just hoping he can continue his success
or
from
today?
last season. I mean, he had a huge bounce back season, which contributed a ton to the Blue Jays starting pitching success. This starting rotation only has one left-hander, and that is the man Yusei Kikuchi. Mr. Yusei Young hopefully has another great season. We need it from him. He has electric stuff, one of the hardest throwing lefties in the league. I'm excited for him to continue his success and make hitters look silly at the plate in 2024.
He looked so good last year, and again, he's one of those guys that we dogged the year before, thinking, "Oh, he's got to be better." We're sort of joking, making fun, and then last year he came out of the woods and started just striking guys out, having amazing outings. He is an electric player to watch, especially that bounce back, right? So if he can keep that pace going, it's going to be a very, very good season for this Blue Jay starting rotation.
One thing I'm interested to see is how he kind of approached this offseason. Because I know last year, obviously, he had a lot to prove. So he got into spring training pretty ramped up, was throwing 93, 94 pretty early in spring training. So I'm wondering if he kind of kept that same approach or if he wanted to dial it back a little bit. For him, he got even better down the stretch. So obviously, the arm still held up throughout the entire season. Whatever he did in 2022, that offseason, he should do the exact same thing in the 2023 offseason, and hopefully he did that. No need to change anything for Yusei Kikuchi, Mr. Yusei. If he can just continue to be successful from the left side and throw that heater and use these pitches and locate like he was last year, I'm super excited to see what he can improve on for the 2024 season.
Yeah, Kikuchi is he's just great to watch. And I think it is that bounce back storyline for him that makes me love him even more, right? That he went out and he proved that he belongs here, that he belongs on this team. He belongs to be one of the best pitchers in our rotation. It was one of those things where we were so high on Alek Manoah and he sort of fell off a cliff. And then Kikuchi climbed from the depths of hell. So it was great for him to see. And if Manoah bounces back as well, Kikuchi can keep up what he's doing. Of course, Gausman's going to be an absolute beauty and stud as usual. Bassitt looks good as far as I've seen videos of him pitching in the in spring training here, and then of course Berrios as well. If he can stay hot and great like he was last year, this rotation is just it's got to be what, top 3 in the league, you think?
Oh, for sure. I know it's tough to compete with the Dodgers rotation with all the guys they have there, Kershaw, Yamamoto, Shohei. When he is able to pitch, that rotation is scary. The Yankees have a decent one as well. There's a few other ones, but top 3, I think, is an easy argument for the Blue Jays rotation, especially if you can anticipate a bounce back from Alek Manoah. And then you have a guy that's been gaining a lot of steam in this offseason is Bowden Francis. I know this first spring training game, it looks like he struggled a little bit. I was unable to watch this first few innings as we're recording this podcast, but I will be watching some highlights on him. We'll see what happens. Alek Manoah, we're obviously on this podcast, we're very high for a bounce back. And one guy, well, I think Yusei Kikuchi got overlooked a little bit with his bounce back last season, how important that was to this Blue Jays rotation. But one guy that didn't really, it seemed like, get a lot of credit was Jose Berrios. A guy that had easily his worst year of his career in 2023, no confidence on the mound whatsoever. To have a guy like him pretty much be a 1 for this team statistically was a huge thing for this Toronto Blue Jays rotation and a reason why they were so successful in 2023.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. You know what? He was, you're 100% right. One of those guys that we were pretty down on the year before, and he sort of made us eat our words a little bit. But yeah, the fact is this Blue Jays pitching staff doesn't get some of the recognition they deserve, especially I think with everything that was going on with Alek Manoah last year. That was where the focus was. The rest of these guys were just very good, very consistent, and there wasn't a huge storyline there, and that's why it probably got overlooked a little bit.
Oh, for sure. And one thing with Jose Berrios was the reason it seemed like he was struggling so much in 2022 was his four seam fastball. He was throwing it a lot and it was getting crushed. It was like a 400 average with the four seam. And then the Twitter warriors kind of were like, hey, this guy's four seam sucks. Why is he throwing it? It was such a big storyline for so long. And then Pete Walker doing what he does and just being a magician in that pitching rotation, finding a way to just kind of kink it out, tweak a little bit of his mechanics, and then drop that 14 percentage through a lot more of that sinker. And look what happened. I think it was around a 3.5 ERA for the guy. One of the best seasons he's had in his career. And hopefully he can turn Alek Manoah around. And like he has done with Yusei Kikuchi, like he has done with Jose Berrios. Kevin Gausman's gotten even better since he's come here. So with Pete Walker and this pitching staff, I'm super excited for them to continue having success and hopefully be a top 3 pitching staff again in the 2024 season.
Another guy who probably doesn't get enough credit is Pete Walker for the amount that he does for this team, and the way he works with these guys. I don't know. He knows more, it seems like, than anybody, because he can just fix these guys, these little problems that are, end up becoming a big thing. Pete Walker just always can, sniff that stuff out and get rid of it, which is just electric and a great guy to have there for this team. And you know what? More so, Carter, I'm just excited. Spring trip baseball's back. I am just over the moon. I think I haven't stopped talking about baseball for the past 2 days this weekend, and it's just been unreal. And to see Kikuchi going to, I guess today is going to be so much fun. That is when I see Kikuchi scheduled in to pitch, my eyes are going to be glued to that TV.
How many strikeouts do you think he has? I'm assuming it's going to be a 2 to 3 inning thing. It's not going to be anything crazy. So I'm just going to give it to you, though. If you had to pick a strikeout line for Yusei Kikuchi, what do you have him as?
If I had to set his over-under, I'd set it at 4.
Wow. So you're giving him a lot of credit here.
Yep. I think he's going to come out and just tear these guys up.
I love it. I mean, we'll see where the Pirates kind of show out. Their lineup obviously isn't that deep to begin with for the major league. So we'll have to see what kind of major league talent they're willing to dish out here. Just want to say thank you guys for watching. Your likes, comments, subscriptions are always appreciated. You've been showing insane support on these videos. I just want to shout out Braden's Twitter with spring training going on. It's Braden 5 Owasco. He's always active on there. Pretty much living on Twitter. He's going to be active, just showing you guys some Blue Jays content. And with spring training going on now, there's obviously a lot more to talk about. So I'm going to be getting more active on there as well. That's Carter First 2. Look at our TikToks. We have some interesting content coming up from over there. Obviously, we got robbed last week. If you guys saw those videos, we have them on TikTok as well. And just before we head out, I just wanted to throw it to our 24/7 streaming channel one more time. For whatever sports content you guys want to digest, just head over there at any time throughout the day. It will be on for you guys. You probably see us over there as well. So, Braden, you got anything else to say before we head out here?
Kikuchi to the moon. We're taking that guy all the way to the top.
That's right.
Kikuchi, 4 strikeouts. Bet it. Get it locked in. Money in the bank.